Welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast, show number 244, Finance Friday edition, where we interview Matt and talk about the best investment vehicles for your dollars.
I'm already at 37, and I'm really only starting to save for retirement until about a couple of years ago, because I had this late start because this career field's really, really hard to get into, and you don't make any money for a long time. And then finally, and you have these huge student loan debts, and when you finally get to a decent airline is when you can finally start getting ahead. But it took me till, I was 34, 35 to get to that point. So I have this late start, but I would like to, the goal is to try to be minimally financially independent by 50.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Mindy Jensen, and with me as always is my high-flying co-host, Scott Trench.
Hi, I'm not your co-pilot on this one?
Oh, that's better. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Mindy Jensen, and with me, as always, is my co-pilot, Scott Trench.
Oh, we're just winging it with these intros today.
Oh, God. Oh, that was terrible. That was actually very good. Scott and I are here to make financial independence less scary, less just for somebody else, to introduce you to every money story.
Because we truly believe that financial freedom is attainable for everyone, no matter when or where you're starting. That's right, Mindy.
That's
whether
right.
you want to retire early and travel the world, go on to make big-time investments in assets like real estate. Actually, whether you want to retire early and stop traveling the world, because you're a pilot that travels all over the world, go on to make big-time investments in assets like real estate or start your own business. We'll help you reach your financial goals and get money out of the way so you can launch yourself towards those dreams.
Thank you for the assist there, Scott. That was a good change up. Yes, today's guest is a pilot who currently literally travels the world on his day job, and he is wondering where his money could be best spent. So Scott and I give him some suggestions for what we would do if we were in his position.
Yeah, I thought this was a great show, and I think that a lot of people, maybe if you've been listening to the Money Show for a couple of years and you've begun to pay off all those, like most of those debts, or get back to zero, have a house, home equity, or and some home equity in it, some retirement accounts, it's hard to self-actualize that, oh, I'm over this hump in the journey that is wealth building. And now, instead of working against me, the compound effect is going to work for me. Right. I've paid off all those debts. I've got back to zero. I've got my emergency reserve. I got a financial foundation. Now it's not another 20 years to build $1 million in net worth. It's considerably less. If average historical returns continue with that, which I think is the only reasonable way to really plan around a lot of these things. You have to have a margin of safety with that, but at some point you have to invest with the expectation that it's going to grow. And I just think that Matt is going to experience so much of that over the next 3 to 5 years that he's going to blow away some of his financial goals and kind of redefine what's possible for him in his life over the next decade or so.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, Scott. The slog, which we have mentioned on this show several times before, the period of time where you are starting your wealth building journey and you're just really waiting for compound interest to kick in, it can be like, oh, am I doing everything right? Yeah, Matt says, oh, I'm wanting to do this the fastest way possible. Well, the fastest way to $1 million is to win the lottery. We don't talk about that because that's not really all that easy to do. So instead, this is the second best way. Investing in real estate, investing in the stock market consistently and over a long period of time will get you to your goal. Most likely. No guarantees. Scott, should I talk about what my attorney makes me say? The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither Scott nor I nor BiggerPockets is engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should seek your own advice from professional advisors, including lawyers and accountants, regarding the legal, tax, and financial implications of any financial decision you contemplate. Matt is 37 years old, single, with no plans to have any children, and makes a great salary. He contributes to his 401k, his Roth IRA, and his HSA, but is wondering where his investment dollars can be best put to use. Matt, welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast. I'm super excited to go through your numbers.
Hey, thanks for doing this with me. I know it took a long time to get this worked out.
Okay, let's remind everybody what part of the world you live in.
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay, so that's a relatively low cost of living area. It's not like a New York City or a San Francisco.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's jump into it. Where is your money? How much money is coming in and where's it going?
So my base income is $100,000 a year. But with overtime and bonuses we've gotten, I'm really more on track for 110. My expenses, I just bought a house in January. The mortgage cost me $1,350 a month. Gasoline's about $100 a month. Insurance is $100. Utilities in the summer on the high side is about $250. I spend about $100 a month on groceries. It's not very much because I'm never in town. And then on the flip side of that, restaurants, I spend close to $1,000. It was more like $860 when I looked at the previous month. And I've got about $150 on an entertainment line there. And then I have a boat in the marina, which costs me $470 a month. I don't have any student loans. Those were all paid off in 2016. And I don't have any car payments. I have 2 trucks, a 94 Bronco and a 92 Ranger. And that's it.
So how much does that all add up to in terms of monthly spending?
$33.80 a month.
$33.80 a month. And on that income, how much is actually take home pay that's going into your bank account?
So I have a total of $33.80 expenses and a remainder of $19.50. So I have to get a calculator. I can't do that in my head.
Okay, well, so you're saving $19.50 a month. That's right. How much is accumulating on average.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we have no debts. Let's go through investments then.
So I am maxing out my 401k. We have a company, a Roth 401k also. So those two combined are maxed out, which is one of my questions down the road. So that's getting $19,500 a year. My HSA is getting maxed out. And we have a company ESOP, Employee Stock Ownership Program, that just started this year. Not really don't have a whole lot of faith in it, but supposedly in 5 years it'll be worth $260,000. Of course, if the value of the company stays the same. I'm not really counting it, but it's supposedly there. And then I have about $6,000 in crypto, and that started at around $900, I think. And the home I purchased in January, I owe $227, and it's supposedly worth around $295. But I purchased it for $240 because this city, even though it's low cost of living, it's exploded like the rest of this country.
Awesome. How would you peg all of that in terms of net worth?
I have, when I added all that up, it was about $181,000. So 10% of my net worth is savings and cash, and then 3% is cash for my next down payment on my next home purchase or multiplex or whatever. 32% of it was in retirement accounts. 39% of it is in this house, this real estate. And then the remainder is 16 is other, like crypto. And then this boat I purchased for really, really cheap, and I'm going to make money on it. It's kind of one of my things. I like to work on stuff and flip it, but that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. So how much total cash do you have?
$23,000.
$23,000. Okay. And then what's the goal? What's the best way we can help you today?
So I'm at a point right now where I'm maxing out the 401k, I'm maxing out the HSA, and I have extra cash left over. I've bought my first home. It's going to be rented out by January, and I'll move on to the boat. But then I'm going to have this extra cash, and I don't really know where to go next, other than it seems like my two options are a brokerage account or just keep doing more real estate. But and the other question is, with the 401k and the Roth 401k, I don't really know how I should allocate those funds between those two. And I've read, and I just can't get to a consensus on how those should be allocated towards each other. You know, should I put 50-50 between Roth and the regular 401k? Or I can't figure out a direction to go from here, because I am accruing more cash, and I just, I don't know what to do with it.
Well, I think that the reason the reason that these questions are hard is because there's no right answer to them. It just depends on what you want with your strategy, which I think it's great. I think that a lot of people struggle with this. Like, is the Roth or 401k better, right? Well, let's start with that, a quick example of that to help you to help frame the kind of decisions that entails, right? I'm 31. I max out my Roth IRA and I put no money into my 401k. So all of it is every dollar I can is going into the after-tax account. And I earn a high income. But the reason I do that is because I believe that tax brackets are likely to rise over the next couple of decades before I hit traditional retirement age. And I believe I'm going to accumulate a large amount of wealth. So I'm going to remain in a high tax bracket even after I retire from wage paying work. So that's one framing of the discussion. Someone who would be contributing to a 401k might be earning a high amount of income right now and expect to retire, but only spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year and withdraw a lower amount of taxable income on a regular basis with that. So that's an example of framing the discussion about like, what's the right answer? Well, it depends on whether you believe tax rates are going to go up or down, whether you think you're going to be in a higher or lower income tax bracket at retirement age than you are right now, right? So that's why it's such a hard question with that. With that framing, I think we should come back to like what are some goals? Like, where would you want to be in 5-10 years? Do you want to be financially independent? Do you want to and retired at that point? Do you want to be entrepreneur, building a business? What does that look like for you?
No, I'm pretty happy with my career. I'm a pilot. I get to fly all over, and it gives me a lot of joy. And I don't really have any desire to retire early, but I would like to have the ability to, because this is a wild industry, and you really can't count on it. It's not that, as you know, with last year. So the goal is to become financially independent by ideally 50. I think it's a hard number to get because I'm already at 37 and I'm really only starting to save for retirement until about a couple of years ago, because I had this late start because this career field's really, really hard to get into and you don't make any money for a long time. And then and you have these huge student loan debts. And when you finally get to a decent airline is when you can finally start getting ahead. But it took me till, I was 34, 35 to get to that point. So I have this late start, but I would like to, the goal is to try to be minimally financially independent by 50.
Okay.
And I figured based on my expenses now, I was looking at, I think 1.25 is my number, assuming a 3.5% withdrawal rate on it, and researching what the withdrawal rate should be to make sure it lasts forever. It seems like that's a pretty safe, conservative number. And, that's kind of the target right now. And because I don't really have that many expenses, I think my pay is only going to go up, and soon I'll be upgrading to captain, which is about a 35% increase in pay. And that's just going to keep going into retirement accounts or wherever I decide to invest it. So I think I'll have the ability to do it if I, just don't start spending more as I make more, which I'm pretty good at.
Yeah, I think that's super realistic with a lot of this, and on the surface, we can get into the details there with a little bit. One additional question I have is on the housing situation. Did I hear you're going to move from the house to a boat? And is that going to realize a large amount of a drastic reduction in cost of living to a certain degree?
Yeah. So I've actually been living on boats for the last 6 years, and I finally sold my last boat in October and bought this house in January because I said, okay, I need to start getting some appreciating assets here. So I sold the boat, got this house. Long story short, I don't like living in houses. A couple months into it, I decided I'm moving back onto a boat. So I'm going to rent this house out and move on to the boat. And it's definitely going to save me a lot of money because the boat's paid for, it's cash. And I got that boat for really cheap because I work on stuff myself. And when I do sell it, I know I'll make a lot of money on it. But it currently only costs me $470 a month. So the house, the home expense, living expense, just for where I'm living is going to go from $1,350 to $470 a month.
When you go to rent this house out, will the rent cover all of your expenses? Will the rent cover, have you run the numbers with regards to vacancy and property management and things like that? You're a pilot, so you're not home a lot. I think that having a property manager in your particular situation is going to be the best bet,
Right.
just because you're never home.
Right. Yeah, that goes without saying. It's impossible when I'm on the other side of the planet for 20 days. I've got to have management. So I started at the mortgage expense of $1,350 and kind of worked my way up from there. So, I know just coming from BiggerPockets and just researching real estate and rentals and things like that, I'm setting aside 10% of the rent for management, 10% for maintenance, and 5% for vacancy. And I know down here that's pretty conservative, but that brings me up to $1,800 a month, which would be the break-even point, and I'm pretty sure I can rent this house out for $1,900 or $2,000 a month. So that's upwards of $200 a month income there.
How close is it to the airport? Could you rent it as a crash pad?
Not really, and this isn't really a place for a crash pad. It's not really a big hub. So it really wouldn't do that well. I'm actually going back and forth between doing long-term renters or Airbnb. I think I'm being pushed in the direction of Airbnb because of just the ridiculous return on investment I'm seeing with other friends doing it. So I think I'm going to give that a go. But as my backup plan, long-term renters, it's going to cover it and even maybe make $100 or $200 a month profit.
Is your principal, interest, mortgage payment, does that cover, does that also include PMI?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
so
PMI
that could go away.
It's only like $68 a month.
Okay. Not a huge pull there.
Are you considering doing this multiple times or just this once with this property?
No, actually, I want to keep doing this. I'm saving up for another down payment. I did this house with 5% down, so I would like to make the next one 5% down, so I have to wait a year. And this January will be 1 year. So it's kind of like I want to get this house on it, moving on its own, and then I can focus on the next purchase, whether it's a multiplex or another house, probably a multiplex, ideally. But right now, everything's so ridiculously expensive. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of holding off right now.
When are you expecting the 35% pay increase again?
Well, that's associated with getting a captain upgrade. And right now, it's not in stone, but it's. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm estimating first quarter of next year.
Okay, so within a year or two.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so well, and one last observation before we get into kind of some. Well, actually, there's probably many more. I'll probably say that 6 times. But you're on the expense profile. I didn't notice anything for like large one-timers, like insurance for the car payment or capex for I have to go and buy a new car or whatever that is. Do you have an allocation bucket for those types of things in your expense categories?
No, because I don't. I mean, I have 2 trucks. One's a 94 Bronco and a 92 Ford Ranger. They're both paid for. I do the maintenance on them. I work on them. So the expense on them is really, really low. And even though they get horrible, the Bronco gets horrible gas mileage. Again, I hardly drive them because I'm never here. So the car expense is pretty negligible as far as I'm concerned. Because I just will never buy a new car or something even less than 25 years old. It's just not my thing. They're boring.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we're going to save $2,000 a month pretty consistently after maxing out the 401k and the HSA and taking care of a number of other buckets.
Right.
And that's going to stack pretty consistently at to the tune of $25,000 annualized. There's going to be a big change when you move on to the boat. There's going to be a big change when you get the salary increase with that. Right. And so a year from now, you could be on a run rate basis saving $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month. Is that right?
Yeah.
After maxing out the 401k and/or Roth IRA.
Right. And I have my 6-month buffer, and I also have a 6-month buffer for this house that when it becomes rented out, which is in its own separate bucket.
And if we extrapolate, that's going to, that should continue to increase over the next 5 to 10 years, that average savings rate. Depending on you could spend a portion of the increases and all that kind of stuff, but you should be able to continue increasing that. If you go from 25K a year in cash savings right now to 60, annualized a year from now to 65, 70, 75, 80. And so the challenge is turning that into 1.25 million in the next 13 years by age 50.
Or
right?
quicker.
And if you're going to do, and your approach that you're willing to do is buy and rehab and position real estate investments for rental income and wealth building, and or stock investing with that. Is there anything else that you're willing to consider or do, like entrepreneurship, or is it going to be mostly those two that you're?
I don't know if the motivation is there to add a side hustle or anything like that in addition to the real estate thing. On my 10 days off a month, I just want to check out, because after 20 days of work, I need it. And it's hard to run stuff, or it's hard to find something I'm interested in running remotely, which is really the only option I see that I have. So I really don't see anything like that happening. The only thing I have coming down the pipeline is upgrading to captain and getting that pay raise, and then also getting hired at a much bigger, more well-paying airline, which could be, some of these guys at some of these airlines, they make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. It's insane. So if I can get hired there, obviously, it's not a problem. I'll get there, but it's not a guarantee. Those guys are all at the top of the pyramid, and everyone's fighting for those jobs. So I can't really count on it, but
so you don't need all of that to hit your goal. I don't think. I just was wondering if there was anything extra. So I think you're going to crush that goal, or you have a very fair shot of crushing that goal over the next decade or so with what we currently got here.
I agree. I think that we talk to people who start at zero and negative net worth and get there in 10 years, and you've got 181 with a lot of income potential coming up. A question that I have about being a pilot. I'm not a pilot. I don't know anything about it. Is there any opportunity to do private flights on your off days? And I understand wanting days off, but you have 10 days off. Maybe you do a day of flying for that's a good income generator. I'm not sure how that pays.
So generally, airlines don't like you working on your time off because it affects the total flight time you've done for the year, for which there are limitations federally.
Okay.
For example, we can only fly 1,000 hours a year. And if you have another job that affects that total number, then your airline you currently work for gets mad, because then you can't work anymore when you get, let's say you hit the number by November and you're a pumpkin for the rest of the year. So that's kind of out of the realm of possibility. However, there is a potential job I may get as a captain on a tiki boat downtown St. Pete, working for a friend kind of on the side. I'm just doing something on the weekend. It looks fun. I'm working on my captain's license for that. And
your boat captain's license.
Yes, right. It looks fun, so that's something I may get into. I don't really know how much it makes, but it'll be something.
Probably need a bartender license for that one too. So.
Yeah,
That's
that'll
awesome.
be a lot of fun. That's the kind of side hustle you want, is something that you would just go do anyway, even if you weren't getting paid for it.
Right.
Okay, so extra flight is out. I didn't realize that it was only 1,000 hours a year that you could fly. What about age limits? I know you can't fly after a certain age, right? Like 70 or something?
65.
65.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have 30 years, 28 years left to fly if you so choose.
Right.
Are there part-time pilot options for once you hit your FI number and you still like to fly, but maybe you don't want to do it 20 days a week?
Yes.
Are there part-time options too?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got
more of a corporate situation. But
the world is really your oyster here. Let's go back then to the HSA, Roth IRA, Roth 401k option. So right now you're able to, income limit wise, you are able to contribute to your Roth IRA. And I would recommend, if I was in your position, I would continue to max that out for as long as you possibly can. The reason being you are going to get a 35% bump in pay, which will put you at around 135. 139 is when you start to not be able to contribute to your Roth IRA anymore.
Mindy, I bet he has a Roth 401k. Is that right, Matt?
He has.
I have a 401k and a Roth 401k with the company.
And then do you also have a Roth IRA outside of that?
I opened a Roth IRA, a regular IRA, and then I also opened a brokerage account. But they're all very new. There's not a whole lot in there, and that's where everything's going to start going and maxing those out.
I need to double check this. I should know this, but I think you should check with a CPA about whether you can do the Roth 401k, max the Roth 401k, and open a separate Roth IRA incremental to that.
Okay, that didn't even cross my mind. So okay,
I would check on that one.
I think you can.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that. Probably not like the end of the world or anything like that. But I think that because you have a Roth 401k option with your work, and you're either going to stay there or move on to a major airline with your career, that the Roth 401k option will likely be available to you for the duration of your career or until the government says you can't do it anymore. That said, right. I also still like the Roth IRA personally and max that personally instead of the 401k.
Okay.
Because as I discussed, I like that. There's no right answer there. There's no wrong answer. It's just a matter of what you believe is going to happen over a long period of time and government policy and your income with that.
Right. Well, another reason I wanted to... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, this is your show.
I was going to go on another rant about what I said earlier, so we could skip that.
The other reason I opened up the IRA, I opened it up with Vanguard, and it seems like I can get much more exposure to better investment funds than what the company can provide me. And when I move on to the next airline, then I can dump all that into there. And there's some things that I think I want to invest in that I can't get access to through the 401k. So I'm still trying to figure out specifically how I want to allocate these things and what the best direction is with that.
Does your company offer a match?
Yeah, 2.5%.
On up to how much?
100%.
Okay, so in that case, it's a moot point, and this is just like a racket in the finance industry. Is these company funds, they all charge ludicrous fees, in my opinion.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, you're getting a match, which is going to offset a lot of that. So when you move companies, or if you move companies, or in a future date, you can always roll the IRA at your company over to another one. But every dollar you contribute there is getting a match. Every dollar you contribute in your Vanguard fund off that's on a different platform is not getting a match. So right. I think it'll be hard, even if the fees are high, for that math to work out poorly if you're able to then roll the funds over in a future year to another IRA.
Yeah, I did take a look at the expense ratios I was in a target date retirement fund that they just put you in automatically, and I was getting killed on the expense ratio for that. So I moved into a bunch of Vanguard ETF funds, and it's like 94% stocks now, but it's an overall 0.17 expense ratio, which it really, really lowered it a lot. So that's about as far as I've gotten with the 401k and Roth 401k investments. But
that's great. That's lower than the fees I pay in my 401k or Roth 401k. Sorry, Roth 401k more specifically. So.
But for that, I used Bloom. That wasn't. I had some guidance from Bloom. I don't know if you're familiar with Bloom or not. BLOOOM. And they basically sign into your account and see what funds you have available, and they take you answer a questionnaire to get a feeling for your risk appetite and what your goals are, and they go in, they see what funds you have, and a few days later they come back and give you recommendations, and you can go and do all the switches yourself. And it wasn't my own smartness that got me down to 0.17.
That's awesome. They should get these Bloom guys on the show at one point.
It was pretty cool. I like it. And they tell you when you need to rebalance. Like, they just told me I needed to rebalance it, so I did.
And what does Bloom cost you?
I think it was like $26 a year.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's why I gave it a shot, because it was inconsequential.
Kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the Roth this is going to get confusing. The Roth IRA, the Roth 401k, the 401k options. Right now, I looked it up. You can have contributions to a Roth 401k and a separate Roth IRA.
Okay.
I love that you have a lot of income potential coming up. I want you, if I was in your position, I would be maxing out the Roth IRA every year that I was able to. Back on episode 200, we talked to Kyle Mast, who said that he thinks with all of the money that the government has been writing in stimulus checks, they're going to be now looking for ways to fund that, and cutting out the Roth option is a really easy way for them to generate more income, generate more tax revenue,
right.
Simply by removing this way to avoid paying taxes. So my suggestion would be to look into the Roth 401k at 100% of your contribution limits, which are $19,500 for this year. And I think they're going up next year, but don't quote me because I haven't looked that up yet. But I should, because it's almost next year. I would.
So we're going to forego the reduced taxable income in an effort to reduce the taxes I'm paying down the road, essentially.
Down the road, yeah, because you are.
Yeah, that's the bet I make personally with it, but it's an unknowable bet, right? So I just want to always couch it with like, that's what I think is the right bet for me personally, and I would. All things I know so far about you think that's your income's likely to rise. You're likely to create a small real estate portfolio to some degree. Your inflation's likely. The government is not likely to reduce tax brackets, all that kind of stuff. So that's for all those reasons I like the Roth 100% better than and 401k 0% when the option presents itself for me.
Right. Gotcha.
So I have a slightly different take. I'm older than both of you. I have a fully funded traditional retirement. And I also have a lot of stocks that I have been trying to sell, individual stocks that I have been trying to sell and move into an index fund. So I have, for the past several years, been contributing to my traditional 401k, my pre-tax, in an effort to reduce my taxable income so that I can sell those stocks and pay less in capital gains or none in capital gains. However, now we are looking at where the balance of our wealth is, and it's really heavy in after pre-tax accounts. So I am now looking towards next year at maxing out the Roth 401k option instead of doing the traditional.
It's a moving target as you grow older.
It's very different. I have had different experiences where, for a Roth 401k, if I had a Roth 401k a few years ago, that would have definitely been what I was doing because my taxable income wasn't such that I needed to really reduce it. You can't, how low can you go?
Well, it's cool. We have this discussion a lot, and a lot of people get really hung up on this because, and it's not really a high stakes decision for them. For you, I think it is. I think it is like a major consideration with this. I think that's you're in this kind of sweet spot where that 401k versus Roth option is a big challenge because of your income profile and its trajectory and how much you're saving and your current wealth profile. So I think it's like one of those. It's one of those ones that we talk about at length sometimes, and folks, it's like you shouldn't even be doing anything in your retirement accounts right now. You should be house hacking or figuring that out. But like you've already got all that, and so I think it's fun to get into that debate in the right context with it, which is I think your situation.
Yeah, it's definitely. I've had a lot of conversations with different friends trying to do exactly that, figure out what the best way forward is, and we just never really can come to a consensus. It's kind of just flip a coin and just go for it at this point.
And that's where I think a lot of people are coming at, which one is it? I don't really know. But with the Roth option potentially going away, that is where I would concentrate now, because then, you can reduce your taxable income down the road. Although, I mean, really, when you're making $400,000 a year, what does reducing your taxable income by $20,000 really do for you?
Right.
Not that much. Okay. So you said another thing you want to be doing is saving up for your next real estate purchase. And you want to move into a boat, which sounds super fun. I'm jealous. Although I don't want to live, I live in Colorado. I'm not going to live in a boat. You live in a warmer place. It's a way more feasible for you.
It just got down to 67 this morning. I was freezing.
Oh no.
37 this morning. Okay. So I feel compelled to say that when you buy a property as an owner occupant, you're attesting to the mortgage company that you're going to live in it as your primary residence. It typically comes with a 1-year owner occupancy requirement.
Right.
So now that I have told you this, you can start saving up for your down payment on your next property. You can start looking. Maybe there's a really awesome duplex that pops up. And, I'm assuming you have a real estate agent?
Yes.
Did you like the one that you worked with in January?
Oh, yeah. He's awesome.
Great. Then I would tell him, hey, I'm in the market again. This is what I'm looking for. If you see something pop up, let me know.
Oh, he knows. I'm on a few different email listings of different things I'm looking for between multiplexes and single family homes. And even though I bought this house, I stayed on the email list because I just want to keep my finger on the pulse. And I've been watching, and he knows my plan. So I bought this house with 5% down. The plan is to buy the next house 5% down after a year and then move into that house. And I would like to get a fourplex closer to downtown, but they're few and far between. So maybe triplex or even a duplex. But that's the idea is get a multiplex for the next one. And that's kind of the goal for next year.
Okay. And what would you do with the boat once you buy the new property? Is that something that you could rent out, or would you just sell it? You said you bought it low and you've been rehabbing it.
Well, so I can live on it right now, and I'll be living on it full time in January. And even if I bought let's say a fourplex next year, I would still technically have 3 rents coming in to cover the expense for a year, and then after a year, I can technically get the 4th one in that fourplex. So it will be I will have the 4th unit for a year because it has to be your primary residence. So that will be my primary residence for a year. And because my primary residence is not the boat right now, it's this house. It's just a boat that's in the marina, and I just hang out there for 10 days a month instead of the boring house. So the plan is to move. You could take the boat out of the picture, and basically, I'm going from this house to a fourplex that I purchased next year, where I'm in one of the units.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering if you were going to try and rent out the boat as well.
And are you willing to?
I don't think I can.
Are you willing to repeat this activity every year for a number of years?
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I was like, let's just try and get one per year for 5 years, and then at 5 years, let's see how things are going.
With average appreciation, this alone will propel you past your $1.25 million goal if you're able to do this, 7 times between now and the next 13 years.
Yeah, that's been kind of an eye-opener because I purchased this house for $242 in January, and I was just kind of poking around looking at HELOCs where the bank gives you their own personal opinion of their valuation of your house without even doing an appraisal, and they think it's worth $295,000 already. So, and there's comps in my neighborhood that are going for over $300. So it's been pretty eye-opening how crazy fast this is exploding. But I think I'm just gonna keep doing one per year and put the least amount of cash up front I have to, and slowly but surely, I think it'll come around the corner here, and I'll get to where I'm going.
Well, that's going to work.
Slowly but surely. I think quickly and certainly you will get to where you want to be.
It's exciting. I think, it's hard to start off in the beginning, and you're not really seeing a whole lot of improvement. And I had this very, very late start because of the massive, student loan debts, and essentially my 20s were just a total lost decade. And I had years where I made $10,000 in 1 year as a skydive pilot, and even as a regional pilot back then, we only made $25,000 a year. So it's been this late start, and I'm just trying to figure out, what is the quickest way to get there? Because I've started way late.
No, I think that's the journey in our version of capitalism in this country. With it is it's very hard to get things off the ground, but I think where you're at right now is, clearly a number of years went into getting you to this very clean position that you're in right now with a clean balance sheet, a property, good $100,000 income, and the home. And now, depending on how you allocate that and how long you sustain that increase in cash flow and where and how you apply it, I mean, it's going to be off for the races. In 3 to 5 years, you might have a $500,000 to $750,000 net worth with the trajectory you're on. If you have a couple of house hacks and get a big income increase, have these continue just investing on a regular cadence inside of your 401k or Roth IRA. And then also you told us you might have another $260,000 in employee stock, employer stock options with that.
That's a tricky one. I'm not counting on it, but we'll see what happens with that. That'll be a nice bonus.
Yeah, I mean, so this game plan is definitely going to work. Not definitely going to work. It is highly likely to work, in my opinion, with this. And I don't think it will take you 13 years to realize your goals with that. I think that with inside of 3 to 5 years, you're going to look up and be like, I'm way over this hump. I may not be completely financially free in 3 to 5 years, but I'm going to be I'm going to be coasting nicely toward the other side of this this equation here.
Yeah, well, that's nice to hear from you guys.
Is that what you think, Mindy?
No, that's exactly what I think. I think that when you look at the wealth, what's the word I'm looking for? The wealth, like a typical wealth growth, it's hockey stick. It's very flat and slightly increased, and then all of a sudden it takes off. And I think you've done your slog of a little bit more, and you're about to hit the stick itself, the handle of the hockey stick itself, simply because you've got such low expenses. When you first look at this, you're like, wow, $800 a month in restaurants, but you're a pilot. You're not around. You live in a hotel, right?
Yeah. It's basically.
So that is not really conducive to cooking a whole lot. And you don't get to choose which hotel. The airline says you're going to stay at this one tonight, right?
Right.
So
are boats allowed to have ovens?
Yeah, there's an oven on it.
Okay, so you can't cook on the boat.
Oh yeah, and also healthy eating is big on my plate too. So I mean, I could save money in the food department and eating out, but I refuse to budge on that. So eating can get pretty expensive when you're looking for healthy stuff on the road too. But that's just an expense I've just dealt with, But other expenses, it's hard to keep your expenses low when you have the income you have, and not fall to the trap of buying this or that, or a nicer boat, or a nicer whatever, or a nicer car, But it's definitely helping. I can see that because of the money I'm able to save, and just keep the blinders on and just keep going forward.
Yeah. Well, when you buy this next house hack and get your massive raise that you're anticipating in the next year, you probably could spend a little bit more on this kind of stuff, because again, I can just see, or I have this picture in my mind of you going through this huge slog to get to where you're at. And again, you're going to get on this other side of that. And you can ease up, I think, in a year or two, or, inside of the next 6 months, if a couple of these projections come true, and you're still going to be able to accumulate a tremendous amount of wealth with a lot of this stuff. So there's something to think about on there.
It is. That's a huge mental shift that needs to happen. Well, I don't know if it needs to happen, but when I grew up, my dad was an airline pilot, and in the first 10 years of my life, we were pretty well. But he worked for Eastern Airlines, and they went bankrupt, and he lost his pension, and they didn't have 401ks back then because it started, I think, in the mid '80s. So in '92, he lost it all. But then he started a business, and it went on for about 20 years. So we weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy, like rich airline pilot wealthy. So, I've always had to pay my own way through everything, and moved out when I was 20 and was going to school full time and flight school, and I've always been. It's just the way I've been raised in the last 20 years. I'm just kind of scared to spend too much money. It makes me nervous.
Well, I think you're going to find yourself in good shape inside of a year or two, and you don't have to, but at some point when you're making $150K and have 2 house hacks and are well on your way with the retirement accounts, there is permission to spend some of that surplus with it.
All right. The Bronco gets a paint job.
Yeah. Something to think about. I think you should keep grinding for a little bit longer here, but you're close to the inflection point, I think, based on what I'm seeing here.
That's awesome. That's motivating.
Earl Shive will paint any car, any color for $99.95. He didn't grow up in Chicago, obviously. I think he's nationwide, but yeah, it looks like he painted it with a broom.
Exactly.
But yeah, get a spray job. Yeah, I think your expenses being so low, your savings rate being so high, I think you will have to do something very wrong on purpose to derail your plans. I think you're just in that period of slog where it's just waiting for the compound interest to jump in and shoot you to the moon. And another house hack, I mean, if you can get a 3 or 4-plex, that'll kind of take care of it. I mean, what's your monthly spending? $3,300 a month with a house hack and your other house hack and, maybe one more house hack and you're going to be done.
I mean, he's going to be spending $2,000 a month once moves onto the boat. Oh,
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I don't know. I do know that you will do. I mean, if you really, really, really want to mess it up, you'll have to take action to mess it up. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going.
Is there anything else that we can help you with today that you have questions about or areas that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, I think, even with saving up for down payments on houses that I'll still have leftover cash and it'll probably go in a brokerage account, but that's kind of getting into the nitty gritty of, what should I be investing in? And that's just going to take, I think, more reading and more research. But it's and just, one thing at a time here, just figuring it out.
Yeah, great problem. You're saving too much money. You're saving more money than you know what to do with.
No, he's not saving too much money.
I'll do it while I can because, I think what has lasted in my memory is my dad losing his job at 55 when he was going to retire at 60 and lost his whole retirement. So it's when it's good, but it just like that, it can end overnight.
But inside of 5 years, you're going to have multiple real estate properties, multiple stock funds, probably options in one of your companies that you're going to work for with this. And I would imagine a pretty solid emergency reserve. So great to learn that lesson, but I don't think that's going to be your situation that you're going to find yourself in unless, we enter a depression, in which case everyone's going to be in the same place around it. It's going to be a relative game. And you're still going to have real estate assets and stock assets and savings and those types of things.
Yeah. So, I think that's definitely what set us on our trajectory is. And when I say us, I mean my brother and I. My brother's the same way. But, when you watch your parents lose their job right before retirement and lose their whole retirement, and now they got to build a business, it really sticks with you. So,
yeah, that's got to be really rough. So what happened with the pension? I mean, you pay into a pension, right?
You do, yeah. And it's based on the survival of the company. And the company went bankrupt and closed their doors. And they got rid of the pension along with it. I mean, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation comes in and helps you. But, it was, for example, his pension was supposed to be $6,500 a month back in 1995. And it turned into $800 a month. Then he starts collecting Social Security and it cut in half to $400 a month. So it really didn't really guarantee anything.
Wow. Okay. If you're listening to this and you have a pension, take note.
Oh, that's why I don't trust the ESOP, the Employee Stock Ownership Program. I'm rolling my eyes at it because I see what happened with my parents. It's directly tied to the performance of the company. So I'm just flat out not counting it.
Now, I want to caveat that with, I think some pensions are more safe than others. For example, I would imagine that a military pension, just for folks listening here, there would be an exception, I think, where you'd hope that would be pretty stable for some of that, and that would be something that you could bank on. But if you're in a state that like Chicago and you're a pensioner there, that's something to really worry about with this kind of stuff. Or a company pension plan, not something to totally bank on with this kind of stuff.
I totally agree. I think for the federal pension for military to fail, I mean, the whole government would have to completely collapse. So, and then we got bigger problems.
Much bigger problems.
Yeah, I can just hear someone listening saying, "Oh, we've definitely had episodes where me and Mindy have said, oh, that pension's like $1 million asset for this individual,' and it is, I think, if you're a military, but it's probably worth some discount on that if it's a private company or a poorly funded state, for example."
Right. I completely agree.
Okay, well, let's look at this employee stock purchase plan. Do you currently own any of it? Do you have to be there for a certain amount of time before you can own it? Is it vested?
So it's they just started paying out this year, and I think right now there's about 10,000 in there, but they're going to pay out over the next 5 years, and then once it's all paid out, it'll be roughly 260,000, and then from there until retirement, 65. I can't really touch it.
What does the word payout mean in this case?
Money is going into an account, a managed account, and it is vested. Basically, it's mine. But I don't get to withdraw until retirement age.
So is this? Are you being granted stock as in the company? Is that what's happening with this?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you're being
so you're not purchasing it; it's just being given to you.
Correct.
And does that stock give you rights to income, like profit interests in the business?
I don't get anything out of this thing until I'm retired. What I can do in 10 years, or I think 11 years, is I can convert it to cash, but I still can't pull it out of the account until I'm retired.
Oh, interesting.
So if I don't feel the company's going to survive or they're rocky, I can convert it all to cash and let it sit there. And it'll lose value because of, inflation and stuff, because it's just going to sit in account and as cash, but it might be better than nothing. So I have to kind of reevaluate at that point in time what's going on with the airline. This
is strange. I've never heard of this.
Yeah. I don't want to get too into it in case someone's listening, but long story short, if it's there, great. If it's not, big deal, because I'm not counting on it.
Yeah, that's the best way to handle this. Do you have to continue to be employed by the same airline in order to reap this benefit?
No. So whatever's in there is vested. So if I don't make it to 5 years, if it's, say, I don't know, 100,000 is worth, and because I leave in a couple years, that's vested.
Okay. Well, that's interesting, but I think your plan to not count that at all and just that's bonus if you get it is the best option.
Right. And I'm not paying for it. So it's kind of one of those things, you don't get anything for free. So again, it brings me back to I'm not counting on it.
Yeah, I think that's the best plan.
Anything else we can help you with before we kind of wrap up?
No, I think you guys have answered all my questions. You have any for me?
No, I think.
Yeah. Where can you fly me to?
Well, you're going to have to box yourself up because it's just cargo.
What's the tiki boat company?
I'm not going to fly in a box.
I can't remember. I think it's just called Florida Tiki Boat. If you look up Tiki Company down in downtown St. Petersburg, you'll come up with them.
All right.
Okay. Matt, thank you very much for your time today and for sharing your numbers with us. I thought this was very interesting, and I have every confidence that you are going to crush all of your financial goals. Literally crush them and be like, wow, I can't believe way back there was my goal because I'm all the way up here. I really think that you're doing great and you just have a ton of potential.
No, that's great. I'm glad I was able to do this because you think you're on the right path, but you get your self-doubt. So it's good to hear that from you guys.
Yeah, love it. Okay. Well, Matt, thanks so much and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, Scott, that was Matt the pilot flying high with his fabulous financial journey. What do you think of his numbers?
Well, what I think of his numbers, I think they're fantastic. I think his numbers are very realistic. I think he's going to crush them. And I just want to highlight the fact that, yes, this is a single guy who's effectively spending $2,000 a month on his personal expenses with that. So, I mean, when you have that strong of a financial foundation and the fundamentals are in place, I make six figures and I spend $2,000 a month. That's the game over right there. You just let that fly for a few years and you're going to, become pretty wealthy pretty quickly with the compounding of if you do even halfway decently on your investing returns. Stack in serial house hacking, stack in, a sophisticated retirement account approach, and stack in a couple of big bonuses from a career that can offer significant upside, and sky's the limit. All right, I'll stop with the airline puns now.
Oh, I didn't even catch that last one. Okay, so we have 4 levers that we recommend people pull to reach financial independence. Spend less than you earn. Check. Earn more income. He's on his way to earning more income. So we'll check that anyway. Start a business, not something that he is interested in, and with good reason. He's got work limitations. He would not want to run afoul of his employer's federally imposed work limitations. And the 4th one is invest in the stock market, invest intelligently in stock market and real estate. And that's what he's doing. So he's pulling 3 of the 4 levers. It seems like he's pulling them fairly seamlessly. It's not a huge burden to him to not be able to spend every dime that he makes based on some of his past experiences with money, which always have a huge impact on your current relationship with it. So I really just think that he's in the middle of his slog, and I'm super excited for his trajectory. And I would like to check in with him in about a year to see if he's done gotten his pilot or his captain's license and the requisite bump in pay, and see what he's doing with that money.
Yep. Completely agree.
Okay. Scott, should we get out of here?
Let's do it.
From episode 244 of the BiggerPockets Money Podcast, he is Scott Trench, and I am Mindy Jensen saying we'll chat again, friend.